greater unity in Europe. That's what German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called for during a speech in Prague last week. He said that the center of Europe is moving eastwards, and the European Union should include more countries like Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. The statement came as the conflict in Ukraine passed the 6-month mark, raising fears of more volatility in energy markets. The bloc says it's preparing for a winter without natural gas, as Russian energy giant Gazprom recently shut down its gas pipeline to Europe, citing maintenance. Last year, nearly 45% of the EU's total natural gas imports came from Russia, a dependency the German Chancellor says he wants to end. Scholz stressed the answer lies in an expanded union. He called on the EU to take its promises seriously when it comes to expanding the bloc. But with the rise of Euroscepticism across the continent and negotiations for other candidates stalled, can the EU really expand? And how would any enlargement be viewed by Moscow? To further discuss the EU's possible expansion and what impact it could have, joining us from Budapest is Zoltan Egeresi. He is a research fellow at the Institute for Foreign Affairs and Trade. And Ulrich Brueckner, he is a professor at Stanford University and joins us from Berlin. Zoltan, I want to start with you. Today we heard from the Czech Foreign Ministry comment on Erdogan's remarks about Greece, saying it's making EU-Turkey dialogue difficult, and the Turkish Foreign Ministry saying that their comment has no value and no meaning here. How would you analyze the recent rift between Turkey and Greece and how the EU is responding to Turkey's airspace being violated here?
The core problem in this issue, the Greek and Turkish relations, which has long-standing problems from years or decades, if you want, it has at least 5 main issues, which is debated among the two NATO members and two partners, stemming from the status of the demilitarized island near to the Anatolian shores, the status and the situation of minority groups, especially Turks in Thrace in northern eastern Greece, but we can also talk about the air space delimitation and the agency delimitation issues, and also the Cyprus problem as a kind of never-ending issue between the two countries also affects the current situation and relations, the status of the relations. And these issues can and seemingly erupt and appears on the agenda of both countries in almost every week, on almost every day, in a given manner. And of course, in this case, the European Union, which has Greece as a member state since the early 1980, just demonstrates its commitment towards this member, as it happened during the last years, let's say, greater misunderstanding or crisis between Greece and Turkey, especially during the 20 years, and also during last year issues when the European Council also demonstrated its commitment toward Greece, that it would also like to maintain a strong and good relation with Turkey. However, it would rather favor to, let's say, protect Greek interests. Of course, by and large, especially if you just take into consideration the European Union foreign policy, this kind of declaration from the Czech foreign ministry is rather let's say, value commitment towards the issue, and it will not affect the daily Turkish and Greek relations, and Greece will maintain its foreign policy, as well as Turkey has already demonstrated several times that it will also maintain its own line.
Right, Ulrich, let me bring you in here. What do you make of the EU's approach? It's clearly and naturally backing its member state, Greece, somewhat being one-sided. Instead of calling for de-escalations, it's sticking up for its member state, Greece, while Turkey has legitimate concerns here with its airspace being violated on a NATO mission, and Greece is part of NATO as well.
Well, from an external point of view, it feels a bit like kids in a sandbox, that you can switch emotions on and off. However, there are practical problems on the ground, but it is a very emotional subject, both in Greece and in Turkey, and every government can instrumentalize emotions whenever it's feasible. So the European Union has, of course, to stand close with its member. That's the main idea of membership, that you belong to something bigger and the other members back you. But whether this is a serious violation of a national interest, or whether you heat up an ongoing conflict or you calm it down and find a constructive solution, is perfectly in the hand of each and every member state.
Right, and this is just one of the many issues that Turkey faces with the EU, but they also have mutual interests. Ulrich, one of the most important issues that Scholz mentioned was the fact that the bloc should ditch the requirement for unanimity in its decision-making process and instead proposed majority voting. How do you think that this will change the way the bloc operates, especially with member states that are divided in opinion?
Well, generally speaking, if you lower the threshold to find a common denominator and to define a shared interest, you easier get things done. But this happens on the assumption that everyone agrees on the shared interest. If you only overrule an important group in your club and violate their fundamental interests, then it doesn't do good to the ongoing common position in something like an integrated foreign policy. So I don't think that anytime soon we will see something like a change of the treaty in something that is as vital for the self-definition of sovereign states as foreign and defense policy. It is important for Olaf Scholz to send a signal what this German government stands for, but the general climate is definitely not a climate to show appetite for fundamental treaty changes. So it's good to know what the German government thinks, but at the current situation, there are at least 10 countries that are far from opening a discussion about treaty changes.
What do you think, Zoltan? Do you think that other member states would warm up to the idea of majority voting?
I believe, I totally agree what we could hear. Several member states will be really against this kind of transformation, this kind of reforms. If you look at just Central Europe, we can see several states like Hungary or Poland who would like, with sure, object any kind of change in this way. And the main concept of the European Union, if we have a historical term or historical view, it's rather about making compromises, bargaining between the member states, and somehow reach a consensus in order to find more likely or better solution to different issues for all the community. And this kind of reform would go against this kind of idea, even if, as it was stated, it will make the decision making, let's say, faster or easier. Right. I'm pretty sure that in the background, several member states will make huge bargains in order to get the common view.
Well, if it does happen, it definitely would make the accession of countries a lot more easier into the EU. And Scholz, during his speech in Prague, failed to mention Turkey, who's been a candidate since 2005 here. What do you think are the main reasons why the accession process for Turkey has been very problematic, Ulrich?
Well, it always takes two to tango, and it's one thing to just count the years for how long Turkey has been in some sort of an engagement status, but it is also a question of how much does a candidate country delivers and to what extent is it in its interest to become a member of an organization that is committed to the rule of law and limits the autonomy of taking decisions that play an important role for the strategic positioning of a country like Turkey in the region. Mm-hmm. So I neither see an appetite of the European Union to enlarge any further, and I would strongly disagree with your conclusion that majority vote would make enlargement easier, because at the end of the day, you have to ratify enlargement treaties in every single member state. So even if you agree as a qualified majority vote that you want to reopen certain chapters and you come to a conclusion, mm-hmm. the ratification will most likely fail in a country. But neither do I see Turkey wanting to be as restricted as EU membership would be the conclusion of, right. Nor do I see that anyone in the European Union wants a country that is surrounded by so many regional conflicts at this given moment mm-hmm. to be a member of the European Union.
Well, Zoltan, let me bring you in here because Turkey is without a doubt an important player in the region. It played a significant role during the 2015 refugee crisis, as we know, the 2019 Eastern Mediterranean crisis, the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, and most recently, of course, the role it played mediating the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine and that groundbreaking grain deal that we saw happen. If it wasn't for Turkey, do you think that the EU would be facing a lot more challenges than it currently is, especially security challenges?
Yes, for the European Union, Turkey, stemming from its geopolitical position, it's a key actor for the Central European member states and Southeastern European member states as well. If you think about Greece, and we take into consideration the migration crisis and the migration routes, and the same is also true in case of Bulgaria and later on Romania, Hungary, Croatia, and so on. So at least from this respect, Turkey played and still plays a really important role. And also, by having good relations and finding the modus vivendi with Turkey, despite the different problems, makes the European Union's gives for the European Union a better position to handle crisis in Syria or in the, let's say, greater entourage of the community. That's why Turkey has to be taken into consideration in any kind of crisis in this region. Mm-hmm. If you think about the Balkans, Middle East, and so on, and just to add, in case of the Balkan conflicts or the misunderstanding and conflictuous relations between Serbia and Kosovo recently, which emerges regularly, let's say, Turkey started to play a more important role in order to maintain the stability of the region. So from this respect, Turkey is a really important partner for the European Union in order to keep its entourage and even possible members in a much safer position or situation.
All right, Ulrich, thank you for that insight. And I'd like to thank Zoltan Egeresi for joining us here on Straight Talk. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left, but it was a pleasure speaking to the both of you.